Spanish. Ven acá, amigo. Ven acá. Sing it. Ven acá, amigo. Ven acá. Ven acá. Ven acá, amigo. Ven acá. Ven acá, amigo. Japanese. Warano Motoni Kitaret. Warano Motoni Kitaret. Sing it. Warano Motoni Kitaret. Kitaret. Warano Motoni Kitaret. Warano Motoni Kitaret. Warano Motoni Kitaret. All the world kumbaya. All the world kumbaya. Kumbaya, my Lord, kumbaya. Last time. Ready? We have a flag march past with the children. And the song that we selected is Woody Guthrie's song, This Land Is Your Land. Alan Beavers gave us the permission to add Canada to the USA for the words, because once it got into Canada, we put Canadian borders to it. And so we thought maybe, was that okay with you if we do that? Anyway, well, as a matter of fact, when we were in Japan last fall at an International Congress, we had a Japan verse, and then we had a world verse. And we'll maybe throw that one in as we're seeing how long it takes for us to do all of this. So, it goes like this. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to Labrador land. From the Arctic Circle, to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. Hey, this land was made for you and let's do it. This land is your land. This land
250 countries in the world today. Well, those flags there represent the counselors that we've had in this camp in our exchange program. We've had such a rich history over the years. And just in the last 15 years, those are the countries we have had counselors from. And today, those international counselors we have on the staff have to carry their country's own flag today. Put friends first to make friends last. That's why we're here today. In 1901, Colonel Charles Jewell, in the first of many gifts, donated the money and tents and supplies to set up a summer camp. In 1907, Noel Jacks rode his bicycle to West Swansea, New Hampshire, because he heard a piece of property was for sale, and he spent $350 of his own money out of his own pocket to buy the home for the new camp. In 1951, Francis Gray, the father of some of our wonderful donors right now, Walt Malins and Charles Deeds all had a vision of a year-round outdoor center, and in 1954 raised an equivalent in today's dollars of $6 million in 3 months to build the camp that we know today. What incredible vision. Charles Hanscom did such a great job building buoys in the early 60s that a new trip center had to be built. And the boys he led have been so loyal over the years that several of them donated the money for this gymnasium you're sitting in right now to call it Mr. Chuck's Court. And that's the basketball court you're sitting on right now. Alan Beavers more than doubled the size of the dining hall in 1967 and built, among other things, the wastewater treatment plant to allow the phenomenal growth that has followed. After helping raise $600,000 for Camp Jewell in the late 80s to save the lake and build Ewok Village and indoor shower house, Bob Neal said, "You could use another couple $1 million here, couldn't you?" Well, we took that as a challenge. And in 1991, cheered on by Paul Burkle and dozens of staff members and volunteers, we started a vision for an entirely new ranch camp across the lake, and an expanded trading post, and a new pavilion for indoor activities. And here we are, sitting in Centennial Lodge 10 years later. With 100 years of incredible leadership, we are standing here on the shoulders of giants that came before us. But this is not the culmination of their efforts, because Camp Jewell has never been about reaching destinations. It's about relationships and lessons learned and friendships and memories that last entire lifetimes. It's the story of thousands of individuals just like us, everyone a critical part. It's been that way every year for over 100 years. So it's our job today to look back on those wonderful years that have helped shape so many of us, helped shape our children, to rekindle the sparks of friendships, to relive the lessons learned that continue to shape our character today, and to rededicate ourselves to taking up the torch that has been passed on to us, and with wisdom and generosity and hard work, prepare to pass it on to many future generations. Please join me in a prayer of invocation. Dear God, great good Father, creator of this wonderful world and spirit that ties each of us together, we come to you today and say thank you. Thank you for blessing us with all the people that have formed this wonderful Camp Jewell family that has claimed us as kin. Thank you for the love that has been so freely shared with all the adults and teens and children. And for these next 2 hours, may our voices raise in praise, our minds grow in wisdom, and our hearts swell, not from false pride, but from the shared love and the emerging vision of the wonderful path set before us. Amen. And welcome, everybody.
Now, for some, Gary needed no introduction, but given the fact that he left his name off the list, that was Gary Forrester. And I just want to point out that so much of what we're looking at now around this property in his tenure at Camp Jewell has really come to pass. Dreaming is one thing. Putting it all together and making it happen is another. And it's a major loss to Camp Jewell, a wonderful gift to the National YMCA as Gary moves on. But Gary, thank you for all that you did for Camp Jewell over the years. It took a lot of people over time to deliver all those memories and to keep the organization humming. And so many of those people are with us today. I'd like to take time to recognize people that are in the audience. Mr. Walt Malins and family, would you please stand? Walt was camp director. Mr. Charles Chuck Hanscom and family. I know as I arrived on the property in '73, the stories about Mr. Chuck abounded. And I've enjoyed them over time, and it's a pleasure to see you here today, Chuck. Mr. Alan Beavers and family, would you please stand? I don't believe this any camp director took as much kidding as Alan Beavers did during my tenure coming on board. Man's got shoulders that are 2 miles wide that he can take it all. Been a pleasure working with you over the years, Alan. He's now a member of the board. And Mr. Gary Forster once again and his family as former executive. Mr. Ambry Butcher and family in the audience, please. Ambry is a longtime supporter of Camp Jewel and once again loaded with memories that made this place happen. Dr. Paul Birch, we weren't sure if he arrived. Dr. Birch is not with us. Mr. Herb Pace and family. Herb, I know you're here. And fresh from a bout with the airline industry, Doug Ahrens. Mr. Doug We should all live so long and in such good spirits. Douglas, good to see you. Ms. April Kennedy, Executive Officer of Advancement for the American Camping Association, is with us. And listed on the back page of your program are all members of the Camp Jewel Board of Managers. And I would ask for those fine people to please stand for recognition. Would you please stand? Also listed on your program are people among whom I am listed, and it just seems like yesterday that we sat down to start planning this event today. But the members of the Centennial Committee, would you please stand? And truly, folks, they deserve a round of applause for an outstanding planned program. And of course, the entire current Camp Jewel staff, those of whom could get away for this moment, would you please stand so that we can recognize you for your work. Now, we told you that there was a great deal of history here today, and who better to go over our history with us and review it than someone who can reach further back in time than most of us. In fact, further than any of us. I present to you now for a few words to us, Mr. Otto Johnson, camper from Camp Jewel at Lake Swansea in 1925. Otto Johnson.
back that far, raise your hands, please. Okay, so anything I say, nobody can challenge. First, let me just say a couple of things about before camp. I grew up near the state capitol, within walking distance of the Y. And there was a group called the Friday Nighters. About 200 kids every Friday went to the Y. For 15 cents, you had a ladle of beans, a bun, a cup of cocoa, and some ice cream. And for that, you had to stay for Bible study. Then a swim, and then a program. But those years brought me to want to go to camp. And I did, and I'll make this short. At camp, we did much of what you're doing now. One of the classes had a man who was interested in snakes. So I can remember I had snakes wrapped around me during that camp, never since. And there was one, now I've lost my thought. Anyhow, there was 2 weeks of good camping. Everybody had a detail. Carl Lewis and I had the detail of taking out and burying the garbage from the day before. We had one of those big wagons that the grocery stores used to have, and that was our job. And the skunks came that night and helped themselves. It's been great. I don't remember very much, but I do remember that those times, and it was pretty wonderful. Thank you.
As Otto is stepping down, he says, "Don't grow old." Well, let me tell you, sir, you have not. Indeed. Thank you. It's now my pleasure to invite up to the microphone a gentleman who's taking some time out of a busy day himself today, as Colebrook has a major celebration going on today, Mr. George M. Wilbur, the first selectman of Colebrook.
On behalf of the citizens of the town of Colebrook, I would like to welcome everybody here in our little town. And you know, if you're going tomorrow morning on your way back home, if you want some fine pastries, you can stop at the Colebrook store. They guaranteed they took the calories out of those flavors. But I know that this YMCA camp was built on a great foundation. Because when I was a young boy, growing up, I used to ride in the O'Connor's dump trucks while they were bringing gravel from my father's gravel bank up here to make the original YMCA. Now, as years passed, this building right here that we're in, the backfill and the material to hold this all up came from my son's gravel operation. So as you people are growing, and then your camping experiences carry on, the foundation of this camp, I know, is built on a good foundation because it came from Beach Hill Farm. But over the years, I can remember, you know, I see pictures, we've had George Gray and many of the other people that have served in their maintenance. We see them come down to the garage in the wintertime to get sand and sand your roads, do that type of thing. But we have had good neighbors, and good neighbors are very important to us. And we welcome you all and continue to have fine success in the town of Colebrook in the years to come. Thank you.
Thanks, George. Our next speaker brings greetings from the Metropolitan Board. I had the opportunity to first meet Judith Stearns as she brought her youngsters, I've known them that long, Bob and Jay, up to camp as staff members as I was working here. And that's how I first met her. And then, as I went on to become a member of the board of directors during my time period as board chair for Camp Jewel, I had the opportunity to be under the leadership of Judith, as she was, I believe, the first woman chair of the Metropolitan YMCA Board of Directors. So greetings to us today from the board via Judith Stearns. Judith?
Hi, everybody. I do bring greetings from the Metropolitan Board of the Greater Hartford YMCA. I also bring best wishes and our heartfelt congratulations to Camp Jewel on its 100th anniversary. The Board of Directors is made up of about 60 or 70 very dedicated and committed men and women, and they have always been an enthusiastic cheering squad for Camp Jewel and have raised thousands of dollars for Camp Jewel during the capital campaigns and the regular annual support campaigns. And they've always supported the vision that Camp Jewel has always shown, and the growth of the camp have been very, very much behind it all. And I know that they all would like to be here today, but I will tell them what a wonderful celebration it was. But may I just take a second here on a personal note. I'd like to tell you about our family involvement in Camp Jewel. And family is so important, as everyone knows, to camping. And as the camp grows older and we grow a little older, history becomes a little bit more important to us because suddenly we find that we are the history. And it's a little scary, but it's wonderful at the same time. Back in 1945 and 46, my husband John went to Camp Jewel and when it was in West Swansea. And then in 1951, just as we had finished our year at high school in West Hartford, they were trying something special, and it was a co-ed camp. And no women, girls, had ever been campers before, but they thought, gee, maybe the girls could, have a wonderful experience like the boys. So we went for a week after school, was out in June, and I was there, and John was there, and all our friends, and we had just a wonderful time. And so that was the beginning of girls and women at Camp Jewel. And then, as this camp was starting to build, and they had drained Camp Triangle Lake, to help build the waterfront and to build the camp and everything, my mother, who was with the Women's Auxiliary of the Hartford YMCA, came up here with all her lady friends, and they waded into the muck of Triangle Lake while it was all drained. And they went in and they got driftwood, the wood that had been at the bottom of the lake all those years, and they dragged it all out, and they cleaned it up and polished it all up, and they sold this driftwood to people to help build Camp Jewel. She's 94, just about 94, and I know she'd love to hear that story again. Then our oldest son, Jay, came here as a camper and then a counselor, and then Bob followed as a camper and counselor, and then our youngest son, Jim, also came. And of course, Bob is now the chairman of the Board of Managers, of which we are very, very proud, and he brings his family here on weekends, and so we talk about Camp Jewel all the time, and it has become such a part of all of our lives. Our grandson, who lives in England, came this summer and plans to come next summer, and our granddaughter is coming next summer. She is just going to be turning 8. So it just keeps going on, just like Camp Jewel will do. And I know that the board wishes you 100 more years of providing summers that shape futures for all of our young people. Thank you.
Just in case I've missed him, Bob Hoffman, have you come into the room? Okay, I just didn't want to overlook him. but Bob Hoffman was going to be with us today in order to bring greetings from the former president of Metropolitan YMCA, Bob Neal. Just on an offhand note, I will share with you that I did have the pleasure of working with both